Well, welcome. Well, welcome. Let's see here. Let me just refresh this window. Did you bring your questions? See if we have any more super chats. Nope. I did get my Mineragua, which is. Did it zoom in or something? That's weird. I didn't even see that. I'm digging the zoom in. What happened? Did the camera zoom in or something? Topo Chico has what do they call those? This is better. I think Topo Chico doesn't have the BFP. What are the brain farting? I can't. I had wonderful sleep last night. I don't know why I feel so foggy. Foggy. The Foggy Mind Bluegrass Boys. How do you like that? Foggy Mountain Brain Fog Boys. By the way, did I show you my new banjo? I gotta get it fixed, but it's not a picking banjo, unfortunately. So what they call you do. Ooh, it's out of tune. Smells good. This banjo is just for smelling, not playing. Have you ever smelled a banjo? I gotta take it into the music shop, so thanks for reminding me. It's called a tenor banjo, 4-string. Um, as opposed to the 5-string banjo, and those are typically used in Irish traditional music, Celtic. So I guess I'll be playing Irish music with it. All right, what else do we have going on? Foggy Brain Mountain Bluegrass Boas. The Tanner G sends in 999. Hey, FDA, my priests are great and I love my parish, but they are economia heavy, I'd call it. What's the problem with that? Does it make sense to have a second spiritual father in a monastery to balance? No, I would not do that. I'd definitely recommend against that. Its economy is a good thing. Like, even, I mean, what do you want, like, rules and rigor? Or, I mean, like, I'm not quite clear. I usually recommend, as well as Metropolitan does, to having a confessor or spiritual father I mean, it depends, but for the most part, there's this weird kind of like autistic obsession with rigor. It's actually a mental disorder, hyper religiosity, rigorism. and scrupulosity and stuff like that. So I'd say it's best not for. I'd say you are exactly where it sounds like you should be. And economy heavy, on economy laden. So that's just, I don't know the situation, but generally I'd probably lean that way to saying that. But thank you. I think there's this temptation to think that unless I spurg out with rules and rigor and strictness, I'm not serious about my faith. And that's a temptation. Um, oh, it's actually prelist too, which is, it's a deception that takes on the guy's holiness and piety and being spiritual. So, um, oh yeah, you tripped me out about the zoom in. What I was gonna say is, there's no problem with applying economia unless it's causing harm in the parish or in your like if you're just like, do you see what I mean? It's all about the kind of practicality of, is it harming you, or like if not, like what's the big deal? Other questions? Man, this sparkling water does feel, it's exactly what I need. I just had a dry throat. Oh man, I'm not a flat water dude. I like fizz. Okay, what do we have here? Live from the Gulch, Cotton Club featuring the Walking Mall and Helena. These guys look like a fiddle. It's got a mandolin, a couple fiddle players in there. Huh, I wonder what that is all about. You're on the old calendar, but we read the same gospel reading. But the saints venerate. Yeah, the gospel and the saints and the synaxarion could be different. So you can be on the same gospel. Um, I forget. I mean, I don't pay too close attention because I'm not on the new calendar. Like when it starts to change, like when you're reading different gospels, it gets kind of, that stuff gets pretty complicated, and like somebody said, it's pretty boring. Any like, I would tell parishioners, like I have a godson that's just like has to figure this stuff, and I'm like, you don't have to like, especially if you're a parishioner. It doesn't have any practical importance to you, and like most priests and clergy, we don't even we don't even know. It's like, when does it change, right? When is they have a Lucian jump, and like there's all this kind of stuff, and it's just like, uh now I don't know. Let's see. But yeah, the saints are going to, because the feast days for saints, that's always going to be 13 days difference through 14, whatever the. Always one spiritual father. Yeah, never two. And it's not even the authority of the church. It's just calendar issues. Like, it's not like because the church. It's just um the calendars are complicated. Like how because you have what we call fixed dates. For example, Dormition, Transfiguration, then movable feasts. Um, and the way that the calendar is divided up between the revised Julian and the old Julian, it's calendars are complicated. There's not much theology behind the kind of breakdown of the dates. If that's what I'm saying. It's just like unless you're just what a spurg on studying different kind of calendars and how they work throughout human history or something like that. Like it's not that important. And even dioceses accidentally publish the wrong. Sometimes I've noticed, like we have a Serbian one at the Western Diocese, and sometimes it doesn't match this orthoprax. So we've had that happen. Yeah, going to you can going back to Tanner G's question. Never have two spiritual fathers. That's forbidden. You're getting too. It's like doctor shopping and getting too contradictory. And you're under obedience. Like, what happens when one says to do this and the other says to do the opposite? Do you see what the problem? You can have a confessor that, you confess to your spiritual father, let's say, and you work through that stuff, and then you go to your local priest that you do confession, receive the Eucharist to, and says, I've spoken to my spiritual father and I've confessed the following things, blah, blah, blah. You could do that. But he's not overriding, that priest isn't overriding your spiritual father's. So that's extremely dangerous and problematic if you had actually two spiritual fathers. And again, the relationship between a spiritual father and a father confessor is different. No way. I got my 1990 class of 1996. Let's see if I'm in this picture. We're in a text thread. Yeah, I'm not even in here. Gosh, it's so 90s looking. Where was this from? Man, we were so young. The 90s are awesome. There's a lot of confusion about like people are, how do I remember last stream? How do I find a spiritual like father? And it's like, I would say most cases, most people probably don't need one. That their local priests can operate, and it's a different relationship. Your spiritual father will be very strict, and you'll be under obedience to penances. Your parish priest. So I guess I'd ask, well, like, why do you think that you need that at your point in life or something like that? Number two, your parish priest can do most stuff as far as offering you pastoral advice, and confession and doing this stuff. So it's just regarding Latinizer in relation to baptismal event naming. What? Totally don't get that. If the reference they use primary point of Latin, I'm not getting it. Are you talking about the only thing I can think about? These primary point to a Latin reference, like a Latin word or post schism. Like I have no idea what you're talking about. Forgive me. Oh man, that is good. Whoever thought water would be so good and bring so much joy to my life? Hey, this is really important about. I mean, no offense. I don't mean this really in any way to offend, but there was somebody in Discord that we've had this a lot too. That this is why learning grammar and rhetoric, uh, the trivium is so important. Is I had people asking questions of the phrase. I'm like, if the grammar isn't correct, especially when it comes to theological and philosophical topics and questions, like it's almost impossible to understand what the person is saying. What is baptismal naming? That's what I don't get. We have Latin saying, as long as they're pre-schism, like there's nothing wrong with old Rome. Western. Just not getting it. And think about too, the purpose of writing is to make clear, like, so you can have awkward sentences or words, like for example, to say referent is kind of that's not a colloquial kind of word. It has a very specific meaning, so that's one reason why it confuses stuff. So you want to, when asking, avoid technical jargon and stuff like that. That first of all, most people won't probably understand what that is, but in kind of normal questions, it'll be confusing or maybe even that's not the right usage of. No, do not bring up topics unless they bring it up. Interesting enough, in this high school text thread, I'm sure, I know everybody in there, they're all probably evangelical. Oh no. Started actually in the text thread, right? Oh my gosh. It's writing out. It's got when I'm talking, it's writing out, and I can't get rid of it. Ugh. I sent in, so most of them were Calvary Chapel. We graduated from Calvary Chapel in 1996. And I'm sure either there's people in there that are no longer Christian or religious in any sense, or they're obviously still probably evangelical. So I sent him a picture of me in the altar on Sunday, wishing him a blessed. You like this? So pop it up. It's hard to see with wishing everybody a blessed and wonderful Sunday. That's it. People seem to like it. I didn't want to push too hard because that's not the place to proselyte. It's like, oh, I haven't seen you in 30 years. Let me tell you why you're all a bunch of heretics and you need to become Orthodox. Like, you have to have tact. So they seem to really liked it, and they're probably amazed given the sort of person I was in high school. I know they are, actually. I've heard people say it, like, I cannot believe your clergy. God has wonderful things planned, surprises for people, your life. But they had asked about the vestment color blue. And so here's an example of, for example, that's like, okay, if somebody asks me a question, if your family members ask you a question about Dormition, but don't bring it up, I wouldn't be like, hey, by the way, here's my picture of blue vestments for the Dormition, and in which we venerate the mother of God. Like, do you know what I mean? I would have been like, that would have been taboo and wrong for me to do. I'm still not getting the whole referent. I understand what referent means in... Oh, hold on. I think I might get what... A newly discovered... What does that mean? A newly discovered referent? But names of saints are not newly discovered. I mean, they're actually real individuals. So I don't think that's related to any sense of, does a common name, does an idea or generic kind of name have a, like, I think you're getting it too complicated. Great conversation starter, yeah. Did you know you're a heretic? That's the bad news. Good news. I grew up in Calvary Chapel. It depends on what Calvary Chapel. It really does. There are Calvary Chapels that are extremely charismatic. I would say most aren't. One of the things is, I think there was some influence to, gosh, what was the name of that church? It was in Anaheim, California. Oh my goodness. Not Set Free, that was the... Oh, this is driving me crazy. Let's see if I look it up, though. There's a history. Pastor Phil Aguilar. Oh man, what is the name of that church? Church. It's literally on the tip of my tongue. Anyways, there was some kind of like crossover with this church, and they definitely brought in some kind of Pentecostal evangelicalism into, but like the Calvary Chapel headquarters, which is where we went to school. Well, let me put it this way. This is really interesting. Chapels were very evangelical, like, and charismatic, but Sunday worship, when Pope Chuck Smith would do, were actually pretty reserved. So it's a lot of there's just differences. I would say most are not super charismatic. When picking a home parish, what's the most important? Community parish life, the priest, or traditional? So great. So we have three things: community parish, the priest. I'd actually say in that order, interesting enough. I'd say the community and parish life's more important than the priest or the traditional structure, than the priest. Than the traditional structure. That's a great question. Because think about practicality. Um, and you're kind of spiritual, but like I think the community, like if you have a rough community where it's like I can't get along with any, think about what that's going to do to your spiritual life. Oh, but suppose it's really like they have no pews. It's like, come on. Okay, suppose the community and parishes are awesome, but the priest, right? You have some issues with the priest. You'll probably still do pretty well in spiritually. And then suppose it's a great community, great priest, but that you got pews and maybe not every woman wears a headscarf. It's like, so what do you think? Like, what's more important? I'd say straight down the line like that. Now, of course, if the priest is a heretic that hasn't been excommunicated, is leading the community, then your parish life isn't correct, right? But what I was trying to say is that have a community parish life that's amazing, and okay, your priest has some issues. Um, I would certainly say the community is probably more important. It's like I don't know, like I can ignore those issues and receive the sacraments and still get confession and stuff like that and do very well. I'm still really lost on your whole. I think you're confusing two issues. Saint names are proper names, always. So they have an established referent. Um, so you don't have the same problems as I was in the debate, is what I'm saying. God is not always a proper name. So that's where the problem occurs. So you're confusing two different issues. You get like they're not. Oh man, my class is going crazy with these texts. Somebody's like, better turn off your notification. I did, but it still buzzes. It's fine. I think you were the only black girl in our. Yeah, she was definitely the only black girl in our class. It's funny. I'm reading my school. We have pews, so you're gonna have to stop watching my streams. It's just so autistic. Do you see what I mean? It's like the priorities are all. I'm telling you, remember I did a whole paper on. Yeah, I'd prefer there'd be no pews. I'd prefer if all the women wore headdresses. But it's literally a mental diagnosed disorder: hyper religiosity, rigorism, and scrupulosity. And it's like, out of all the things, this is what, like. So what I'm trying to tell you is you're retarded. You probably have autism, and would probably never put you in a position to make decisions or authority. That's all right. There's a special place in heaven for you. But clearly you're not capable of thinking through issues and having nuance and prioritizing. You're obsessed with rules and rigor and hyper scrupulosity. Yeah, there's padded places for you. Yeah, I did a whole maybe 4 years ago at Montanica. Oh, it was the men's, like, because especially online, young people have this. Yeah, there's a padded place in heaven for. Yeah, you'll become. That's why most genuine true Orthodox, they're actually mentally ill. Man, that's good. Yes, I know what you're talking about. You're confusing. It doesn't apply to proper names and rigid designation. I'm saying the problem with proper names and like there is a rigid designator unless you have some weird situation where Samuel Clemens and Mark Twain issue. But like, why would you have that with? Unless there's some saint that wrote her under a pseudonym or something like that. Like, I just don't see why that's relevant at all. Caden 999. Who cares about pews? Worship God. Are the saints in heaven prior to their canonization? Yes. I know the Catholics say 3 miracles or whatever. No, we're not autist, and they have like whole courts and like formulas, and they're just obsessed with formulas and balancing equations and yeah, and we're not like that. With 2.5 miracles, are there literally 144,000 that are saved? And what happens? What does it mean if you're the 144,001? Well, but isn't this just kind of scholastic, right? How many angels can you get on the tip of a pen? What if it's 2 miracles and 3/4? 2. No halvesies. Sorry, heaven's full. You're right. We had 144. Yeah, how many angels can fit on the head of a needle? What is a half miracle? Is that like occurring? Right, hold on a second. Good questions today, guys. trying to find something to talk about. Things that I want. There's plenty of stuff to talk about. Things that I want to talk. You know what? I'm thinking about just staying off X for like 2 weeks. This was pretty funny. I'll probably get in trouble for showing this. That's exactly stuff I don't want to talk about. I like. I know what you're talking about. I don't see the connection about the Saul Kripke's. It's a separate issue. I would never use the word rosary if that's what you mean. I'm trying to think of other words that. But that's different because they're not regarding persons. Like, proper names and rigid. Like, so I think you're going down the wrong direction, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I would say don't use post schism words. Um, why? Not because it's the same issue. What we're talking about, whether it's a referent or something like that. That's an entirely different. I'd be because exactly as you said, it confuses people. There is, for example, you want to pray like Saint John of Shanghai and Saint John the the prayer of the Theotokos, like that's fine. Use that name. But if you use like, oh, I like to pray the Rosary, well, everybody in their mind uniquely thinks about Rosary being Catholic. So, like, we should be using. This is why you don't wear clergy. I believe shouldn't wear filioque collars, dog collars. You should be separating yourself from Roman Catholics. And this, this brings me to another point I saw in the Discord. I don't understand this desire to people are like, don't, to find commonalities rather than differences. Like, why? Where does that, just psychologically, where does that come from? It's like, yeah, but can't we say, Father, that, we have similar doctrines concerning, divine simplicity? Why do you want to say that we have similarities? What if, like, wouldn't it be weird if there was like a terrible criminal, right? Instead of trying to find the differences of how you and your family like are fundamentally different, you were like, well, let's just look at all the ways in which we're common with this, vicious reprobate. I find it odd. I'd be like, why would you want to associate with a heretic or a criminal or like, and find commonalities with him? Same with the like, why use the word rosary? Like, distance yourself from Roman Catholics. Don't try to be like, well, we're kind of the same, see? Well, interesting. The prayer rule, the Theotokos, is older than the rosary. Um, Look, I'm gonna ban you if you guys talk about this stuff. I don't want to get into it. It's actually upsetting to me. And I don't want a bunch of simps. Like, you guys lack, obviously, discernment. And so I'm putting a ban on any discussion on that. Well, Father, can't we use... Can we use this scholastic papist language to, like, further... It's like... Can you help me out? Like, I just can't figure out why people would be like, why do you want to get closer to hell? Don't we have commonalities with hell? Couldn't we say at least? Shouldn't we use hell language, hellscape language? Get out the Nepsis rod, eh? So yeah, I'm a big stickler about you don't use the word rosary. And then there's other stuff that's like, it's like, yeah, but the rosary is associated with imaginary prayers and, you know, a bunch of other weird stuff. And the people are like, but you don't have to do that. That's the same stupid argument that furries give. I know that it was formed and it's primarily, it's formed out of, and it's primarily composes a bunch of sexual degens. But it doesn't have to be. It's like... Anyways, is that kind of what you're talking about? But like, yeah, I would agree with that. Don't use post-schism papist language. It's confusing. It gets us closer to hell. Let's hell Cutter. That's pretty funny. Yes. Questions in Streamlabs. Rob Wright, $5. Thank you. I'm RC Discerning Orthodox thanks to you and Dyer. I love the Latin Mass, the singing aesthetics. What's your take on Western Rite Orthodoxy? My wife is RC too, so maybe smoother transition for her as she's stubborn. It's legitimate. It's authorized by the bishops and at least Rocor and Anti. Like, I would hope you wouldn't stay in there. Like, I have my kind of issues with Western Rite. Primarily because here's my kind of argument. It's probably going to get me in trouble, but with people are going to hate me for this, but there is Western Orthodoxy. There is St. Benedict. Totally fine with that. But when that stopped, there's kind of a gap. So I don't know aesthetically what Western Orthodoxy liturgically looked like in many of these things. And so you have to kind of reassemble, sort of like the pagan LARPers do. Like, all this stuff's kind of lost in history. There's kind of some fragments, and then they reassemble speculative what they think it would look like. I think that's problematic, specifically because this kind of theory contamination that post-schism Latin practices and ascetics will never really enter in. And so it's legitimate. Like, it's okay to do that. It may be helpful. I personally wish it didn't exist and would just work better transitioning people into the normal liturgical. I think it's a bit odd to have kind of different rites too. That'd be my... But you're not wrong. I don't think if you go to a Western Rite, like, I just personally, I don't like it and wouldn't want it for the reasons that I know in the Antiochian, a lot of kind of Roman Catholic practices come in. Good question, though. But I mean, at the same time, Western art and European, art, like, it's wonderful. Like, I don't look at, like, I'm not anti-Western by any. I think it's high culture. Um, I'm European. I'm British, Irish, Norwegian. Like, I obviously there's things that I really like about. They used to like about European. Yeah, the Latinizing thing is kind of a weird. I think it would be helpful if you read. There's a different mindset. So when I say Eastern Western, I don't mean geographical. Um, I specifically refer to a philosophical orientation and mindset that begins with the Greeks. As is carried out, like the way that they think about like their kind of first principles about the one, um, about reason itself, uh, is what I call the West. I think that it's not natural to the human nature, what the human experience actually is. And as the Western, let's call it philosophical project, goes further and further, like down history, it goes further departure from what it means to be a human being and to have knowledge. Um, and so, what I would say to be Eastern is just to be human. So it isn't. Oh, it's the ascetics, right? It's the language. It's like no, it's those kind of fundamental. It has to do with the nature of the human being and how they know, um, and approach knowledge and experience. That's what's Eastern. Everything else is supervenient and emergent from that. So the art, the iconography, the architecture, these different things emerge out of the essential kind of subvening base, as it were. Um, and obviously, the ancient Greeks had a lot more in common with that, but as the Western philosophical project goes further and further, it departs from, and I think becomes less human. Um, so, in the Latin West, could you be a normal human being, i.e., Eastern? Yes. And just like each country, right, you have the fundamental essential base that is Orthodoxy, or let's call it Eastern. It will emerge in terms of its songs, even architecture, through the kind of culture and history of its own kind of nation culture, right? I think the West had that too. So, yes, you can be Western and Eastern at the same time. What happens in Rome, though, is they start to adopt the Western philosophical mindset. And therefore, this does have an effect on the, like, I do like Gothic architecture and stuff like that. But again, it's a theologically, it's a departure. It means something from correct theology. And so this is my point. Is there Western orthodoxy by which the Western Rite? There was. I don't know what it looked like. Because there's a gap. And now we're reconstructing through the lenses of incorrect theological and philosophical Western, i.e. the Western philosophical project. That's the problem with Western Rite. Like I said, is it canonically wrong? No, but it's like, I think it's wrong in that sense. Like, I'm like, it's not. And it was only created to kind of, as you pointed out, might help people. I have never found any evidence that it by our saints was okayed. By our saints to be a permanent rite. Like, I've never seen that. Maybe I'm wrong, but so does that make sense? To be Eastern is to be human. So to be Western and be Eastern. That's what St. John Maxim. You don't have to be Eastern. Geographically or like culture, like, do I have to be Romanian, right? Could I be British? Could I, like, that's what he meant. It's like, of course you can. But you're still Eastern. Even if you're Western. I am not Eastern. In the sense of being Arab or Slavic or any of these countries. I am Western. Genetically, culture, like that's where I came out of. But I'm Eastern. Does that make sense? And that's what St. John is talking about. Slavic is Western. That's a good one. It's weird. I was shutting off the OBS. And it shut off, but it was still running in the background. Depends on what you mean, Western. Let me put it this way. When we went to Russia in 2018, it definitely, except for St. Petersburg, it did not feel European or Western whatsoever. Now, why is that? And so I think rather than kind of this discrete kind of cutoff, it continuous, right? Like imagine like a one of those like circles, right, where it's like blue and then it starts to like fade off. I think that's kind of a better kind of understanding of. So Western is definitely European, and it seems to be centralized in kind of a certain kind of area geographically, and then also historically. So clearly, uh, historically and ideologically, Rome and Greece were, uh, and then primarily Rome. So now let's look at somewhere like Romania. Are they Western? Yes, but they have influence. Like they're Western because look at they have a Latin language. But they're not like Spain and France. So what's the distinction? We say Eastern European, right? Um, so it seems like they're in the circle, right? But like they're starting to move. They have other kind of influence, what we call Slavic influences and stuff like that. And the further you go out geographically, then you're like, well, they're definitely not Western. Russia, like moving past St. Petersburg, is not Western. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, you do. So the problem is these words have multiple meanings. So you can't just be like Eastern, West. It's like, well, it depends. Are we speaking philosophically, geographically, historically, aesthetically? Like, that's what we've been talking about for the last 10 minutes. Poll checks, yeah. Father refreshed too hard. 499 saw it's not right to think. What are we to think? You're not to think. Don't make a judgment about. That's the middle path. I am not saved is despair. So you have hope. But hope isn't, I've gained it, right? I've achieved, therefore I am saved. Unless you mean I'm being saved, like I'm just as like I'm married or something like that. But like if you mean your end in the eschaton, yeah, you're not supposed to. So just the middle path is like, well, don't make judgments about it. Have hope, and you read this in the pre-communion prayers. That's what I would say. Yeah, what good is that gonna? Both those are gonna destroy your spiritual life. So without even getting into the theology of it, just like again, how many things can be solved practically? It's like it's not gonna end well for you thinking either one of those. $64. All right, next. What is the term used to group what's rejected? I think it's called the contrary. Of the disjunct. You have two contraries in a disjunct. You reject the one contrary. Yeah, good way to put it. Neither despair nor presumption. Formerly called tag. Don't forget that. Just like formerly called prince. We no longer use. This is a trip. I gotta stop looking at my high school thread. It's tripping me out. Just these memories. All right, next. What was the new What Would Uncle Ted t-shirt line? Let's see. Oh my gosh, dude, this guy. So here's another thing. Here's into the philosophy. I'd ask this. It was the most nonsensical thing I've read in a while. And I was like, where are you getting this from? You just make it up? Uh, like, their concepts were confused. Things that just within the literature are, like, incorrect. The meaning of words, like... And it looked like... I'm like, you just created some theory. Where does that come from? That, oh, I've discovered and created a new theory. Like, that's probably prowess and pride. But then it comes from some guy that, a YouTube dude. He's not so it's not like a professional philosopher coming up like what like that. I could actually, even if they're wrong, I could read. It's pseudo intellectuals like, I've discovered this new theory. Wasn't there some guy that was like trying to debate Jay like last year, and he was like, I created a new epistemology. I'm like, by the way, in Orthodoxy, there's a name for new. It's called heresy. So, but it's some sued online. I'm like, this guy's not even a philosophy professor. Like, why am I gonna watch? Yeah, but he's discovered something. I doubt it. Just some rando, right? That whose words are all confused. Like, anyways, then I was thinking, look, I know you guys aren't going to like to hear this. Do the basic homework and work. And like, if you're going to jump into philosophy, and like, if you're going to start talking about the mind or something like that, and I'm not saying these people are right, but like, you need to know some of the basic literature. What these things mean. What these words. Why does somebody want to skip, cut in line, and be like, I've got this amazing theory? Like, it was downright embarrassing looking at. Number 2, fix your grammar. What is the matter with you people? Are we going to have to send you to the, what is it? Derek Zoolander's School for Children Who Can't Read Good or Write Good. You see my professor coming out at me? I'm just like, you're not special. I guarantee you just say the time. You haven't created some new... If you cut in line and you don't even know the basic literature, no, you've not made some special discovery of and are going to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm sorry to tell you. You actually have to do the hard work. Ortho-Ob, here's a good question. Here's a question in response to your question. So Ortho-Ob asks, what can I do if there's no Orthodox patriarchs in my country? What if I reframe the question and be like, if you'd asked, what should I do if there's no work? And no means by which I could make money and live in my country. You move, right? You try to... there's things you can do in the meantime, but like... I mean, think about it. Are you making a judgment? I'm going to stay in a place where I can never ever go to church for the rest of my life. I heard some priests say you may call a nearby parish or large parish and ask to have a mission be established in the area. Yes, that's all I would tell you what we've done here. So the idea, they're called satellite missions. So when a full parish reaches a certain kind of level, let's say 80% capacity or something like that, it should actually take a group, if there's, and maybe break off and start what's called a small satellite mission. Okay, they write the bishop, and it's the lady that does this, because it has to be led by the lady. We want another, we're running out of room, we want to expand and start another parish, and it would be a satellite. What that means is there is no parish council for that or its own account. Financially, it's under everything's voted in the parish council, the mothership, I call it, and all finances are through the finance and treasury of the main church. Okay. That could be in your own town. Then we have other instances where all of a sudden we're finding in another city tons of people who are Orthodox or inquires and want to be Orthodox. We have one, our most recent one is south of Missoula in the Bitterroot. 90 to 100 people. And so they get what? They get a request to start a satellite mission. And so they appeal to the bishop, and the bishop grants that. And then that's how. And then once that gets to a certain size and maturity, then they request to be made a full mission. They're autonomous. So it's like you get your own parish council and your own financial and your bank and stuff like that. And then once that fills up, bam, 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 like that. That's the idea. Have you also heard European Christians mention old pagan gods that had some symbolism of the Trinity? This is what, here's the problem of, so what? Like, well, so you found some commonalities, but that God has eyes in the picture too. It's like, Oh, I saw the word three mentioned in some pagan literature. It's not Trinitarianism. Is it anywhere close? Other than the commonality, you saw three things. So every time that you see something in threes is like, does that mean Trinitarian? Like, no, Trinitarian is something very, very specific. Just because you can find the word three written down, well, three people. There's three apples, so that's the. So it's a stupid thing to. It's like, who cares? Like, congratulations, you found it. Like, doesn't refer to anything. Does having a split jurisdictions. Oh, I didn't say switch jurisdiction. Sometimes there might be an issue like that. The only reason why you people would break if there was a problem administratively or in that parish. But we were talking about what we were talking about is within the same jurisdiction. And if it were hello, it would be something like Saint Augustine in the City of God is, despite what men intended for evil and the errors God uses for good, like that they had some concept of that they could understand. Like, imagine if there was no concept of three whatsoever. Uh, and then the Christians come and try to explain the Trinity. So only in that sense, just like, for example, St. Augustine goes through like the pagan literature and the pagan virtues and Clytemnestra and sacrifice and all these different things is, despite their errors, the various pagan religions, God was still speaking to people. So that it's like when he came in the fullness of, people would have some sort of concepts and be like, oh, it makes sense. So in that sense, yeah. Yeah, City God's awesome is one of it. It's a long book. Also, depending on jurisdictions, I don't like the OCA model, where it's like to get a mission parish, you have to have like 30,000 in the bank or something like that. Like in the Serbian, people want it, they can establish it. So there's administrative kind of issues. All right, where am I? I'm in my room. Who am I? I still want to play this. I can't do it. I totally gotta. Can you hear it though? Can you? Have you guys? I won't play it, but you can hear the. Can you hear it? One day. One day I'll get to put that up. I'm still tripping on not remembering. My mind keeps going to. Have you ever had that happen where you're trying to think of a word? We're going back to what is this? Church in Anaheim that had a history kind of. They might have broke off from Calvary Chapel at some point. And every time I try to get it, another word, another thing comes in and blocks it. So every time I want to think about this one church, Set Free comes in. Because they're related, but it's like, get back down over there so I can get to the church and word I was thinking about. And then I just obsess about it. Like, I can't get it out of my mind. The most efficient way to show the absurdity of materialism. So, not all materialists, oddly enough, are determinists. That would be a really easy way. All materialists would be nominalists, but not all nominalists are materialists. I've always liked personally my own argument. I'm gonna shamelessly plug my own argument here. Proof of the immateriality of the intellect, which is just a straightforward assuming a Boolean, right, which has to do with the existential import, because it makes it so it's harder to critique when I do that. It's just a series of unconditionally valid syllogisms in which the conclusion of the first argument becomes a premise of the second, and the conclusion of the second becomes a premise for the first. Because notice a valid argument is defined as if the premises are true, the conclusion must necessarily be true. So I make sure the premises are all true of the later kind of valid, because I'm trying to make them sound as well. The premises are all true, and the arguments are not only valid but sound because of the previous going all the way back to the first. That's a really I've never seen anybody. I've seen a couple people get, and I was thankful for it because it helped me think through it in a deeper way. There were a couple people who were obviously sophisticated enough in logic that threw out some objections that it took me a while. I always do appreciate that when somebody gives me an objection and I'm like, I don't have an immediate answer to that. I'm like, that's actually a tricky, and I'm honest enough to say that I'm like, good. That's the kind of stuff I like, that it's like, okay, I'm going to have to go back and think through. And I've had to do that several times. The other one, I think, pretty straightforward, are the irreducibility of consciousness arguments in philosophy of mind are all designed to refute. Some of those, like logical possibility arguments, are difficult for people to kind of get, because understanding kind of modal worlds versus actual worlds and why that's relevant to the thesis of materialism. But basically they all go like this. Materialism is not a thesis that just happens to be that materialism is true in this actual world, but it's a logical claim. that it's impossible, right? The materialism is not true. So if you say it's possible, so we suppose you grant it to the person. We live in a world in when there is no immaterial entities, essences, properties, or anything like that. You can still refute materialism by going, yeah, but I can think of a world in which that's not the case. So if materialism says that's impossible and you're like, yeah, but I just did, then you refute materialism. That's basically one of the easiest ways. Now, of course, more sophisticated philosophers, which none of you will ever run across, probably, unless you're in grad school, do have responses. Just, the response and the objections can often be the same. It's just they're more sophisticated. It's not like you have to switch it. It's just you have to think longer about how to actually answer and articulate those things. But that's the only difference. I'm sure tag could be run on S4 modal logic. I mean, I've never tried. It's like, can tag be put into Spanish or something like that? It's like, yeah. Can you formalize eternal and metaphysical truths and logical truths in different ways? Is that your question? Yeah. Let's see, why not? Thoughts on what people say tag falls under system building. You're retarded and you obviously didn't get the argument. You're so caught up in system building that are the system builders in the room with us right now? That's the problem. That's what it's like. Yeah, when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That would be my response. Clearly you don't get. And I'd also be like, what does non-system building look like? Since you clearly have an idea between the different, why don't you put the burden of proof on that? Why don't you explain to me what it's supposed to look like? What these people do, they're talking heads. It's not. The way that you can reveal this is you ask them questions and they don't know what they're talking. It's like, well, I just heard this. Somebody say this. I'm like, just repeat. Think about it. Here, we're gonna play Dave the Flipping, you're in here. Let's see. This is what's going on here. And here's the response. I'll have to cut this out later since here's how you deal with this. Here's what's going on. Here's how you deal with it. Okay? We're gonna.
Howdy.
Howdy to you.
Beautiful evening.
Yeah.
We should start all our.
Sure want to thank you for coming all the way up here to see me from that nice hotel downtown.
No problem. What's on your mind?
Well, now, here's a man who wants to get right down to it. Kind of anxious to get to it, are you?
Whatever.
Man's attitude goes some ways, the way his life will be. Is that something you might agree with?
Great. I mean, there are some great debate tactics in here. You guys pay attention, okay?
Sure.
Now, did you answer because that's what you thought I wanted to hear? Or did you think about what I said and answer because you truly believe that to be right?
So that's what you're gonna ask me, like, did you just say that because you thought that's what I wanted to hear? Did you just say that because somebody else said that, or did you think about it and you truly believed that? So another good debate, or tactic, or just regarding this too, because he's obviously just spitting stuff out without thinking about it, right? And so the cowboy's calling him out. And he's stumped here a little bit. So now he actually somewhat starts to think about it, right? But watch the way he phrases it. It's funny.
I agree with what you said. Truly.
What'd I say?
Yeah. They're awesome debate tactic. Are they paying attention? Repeat back to me the argument. What did I say? Isn't that great? How many times I've used that and caught people? I don't know. I'm like, why am I even talking to you? Like, you're not even paying attention.
That a man's attitude determines to a large extent how his life will be.
So since you agree, you must be a person who does not care about the good life.
Isn't that good? So he's bringing up a philosophical theme here. The good life. The good life, going back to Aristotle and Plato, is worth pursuing. The good life is philosophy, the love of wisdom, the love of philotheos, for the love of God. But a sophist, who seems to be kind of sophistical or just an unthinker, clearly is not concerned about the good life. So he's calling him out.
How's that?
Well, stop for a little second and think about it. Can you do that for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just like every Zoomer, they've got that condescending kind of laugh or something like that. That's not exactly how the Zoomer laughs, but you hear this, right? But he's got this kind of attitude, right? Now, he's the Hollywood money-making, right? Everybody gives him what he wants, right? So he's developed this kind of attitude. And the Cowboys not having it. Cowboys are straight shooters, okay? They're going to man up. And so he's displaying kind of effeminate behavior. So you have this contrast between a man and an effeminate kind of Hollywood sophistical loser. Superficial kind of human being.
I'm thinking.
No, you're not thinking. You're too busy being a smart aleck to be thinking.
Yeah.
Now I want you to think and stop being a smart aleck.
Yeah.
Can you try that for me?
Look, where's this going? What do you want me to do?
There's sometimes a buggy. How many drivers does a buggy have?
One.
So let's just say I'm driving this buggy.
Yes.
And if you fix your attitude, you can ride along with me.
What another great debate line. How about throwing that in there? Give him a question, almost sounds like a riddle, but that's pretty straightforward, about a buggy and a driver, and then tell him, I'm driving. And you fix your attitude, you can join along for the ride. How great is that?
Okay.
Put children in their place.
I want you to go back to work tomorrow. You were recasting the lead actress anyway. Auditioned many girls for the part. When you see the girl that was shown to you earlier today, you will say, "This is the girl." The rest of the cast can stay. That's up to you.
That's the end of the tactics. Okay? Isn't that cool? One of my favorite. I've shown it before. Yeah, okay, so it's not one that I put in my I didn't put any David Lynch films in my philosophy and film class. First of all, I couldn't. It's not just picking out movies. I have themes that I'm working with that also are matching. Where's my book? The Kowalski book that I'm using here that has like study questions and discussion questions, stuff about the movies. And not every movie I chose is in here, but they do certainly fit in within the themes that I'm using. I couldn't find any David Lynch movies and they're just. I think David Lynch movies are extremely difficult to kind of understand. Like, so I could take clips like that to illustrate something, but there was another movie that I was thinking about. I'm like, it's gonna be too complicated, I think, for them to kind of understand. Is Schenectady, New York. Uh as far as explicit content, it's certainly a lot better than I think one of the more difficult, and you should be careful about, would be Lost Highway. It's got some really dark and pornographic stuff, themes and stuff like that in it. But I'll probably do that for the class too. When something comes up, it's like, okay, we didn't. And by the way, people always ask this. No, we're not watching the films in the class. We don't have time. Each class is actually an hour and 30 minutes, but every hour and 30 minutes, you get 15-minute breaks. So they make classes 1 hour and 15 minutes. There's no way that you could watch a film in a class period. So you do you've already lost 2 lectures. And we need to go over all the lectures and do the stuff in class. So the idea is you're assigned, or you can choose among these movies to watch. Clearly, the movies I listed, nobody's going to have time to watch them all. Or maybe they're movies you've already seen, and you can reference it. It's like, I remember those. Okay, let's see. I have grading to do this week too. Let's see what else we got to bring up. Here's another question. We're supposed to slow it, stop it, ride the wave. I'd say stop thinking about it and think about your own death. It's a distraction. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. How many things can be solved by like, don't worry about it. Stop. Is this the same guy? It's like, I've solved the Getty Air problem, the 64. I don't want the Getty Air problem solved, first of all. I like the Getty Air problem. So, I want to kick you right out. Ain't gonna be any Getty Air problem solvers in my home. You kinda ain't welcome here. Just the humor, like, what makes you? I always find these like really difficult, like philosophical issues, or you just like you haven't even like a degree in a bachelor's and like you actually think you're gonna solve like. But you know what? To be fair, I probably had a little bit of that in my when I was younger. I thought I was gonna be some great philosopher. Like, oh, I'm gonna. You're reading all these greats. Oh, Streamlab. Sorry, forgive me. Just Pedro. $10. Thank you. Happy belated birthday, Dr. FDA. Thank you. Dios lo bendiga. Bendiga. Why did I forget? What did bendiga mean again? No sé. Bendiga. What is bendiga? Forgive me. I don't have an opportunity to practice Spanish in Montana. Does that surprise you? And if you don't practice, you forget. God bless. Thank you. God bless you. Next. Caden, $4.99. I saw It's Not Right to Think. Oh, wait. We already did that one. Is that the ones you were talking about, guys? Blessings, well, I think is literally trying to well said, I guess. I bien diga, well said, but obviously has the notion of saying something well is a blessing. So but I did have that thought. I remember in undergrad reading these like the great books, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna be somebody like Descartes or Kant or something. It's just then you go to grad school and you're like, so this is what's funny in undergrad. Suppose you're one of the top. When you go to, if that means when you go to grad school, you're gonna be a run of the mill. Then you start seeing people like in the masters is that people who are far more intelligent. I was actually shocked. I was like, wow, this. And then the PhD is even worse. And it's like you get in, but you're not up at the top of the. And you're humbled, right? And you see how like even if they're wrong, and they all are. The professors are much more intelligent and better writers and thinkers than, clear thinkers and more rigorous than you are, even as a PhD student. And you just get to the point where like, I doubt I'll ever produce anything that's remarkable. I'm a philosopher. I enjoy, right? But gone are the days of my naive, immature thinking and be like, oh, I'm going to change the world through a revolutionary. I'm going to solve the Gettier problem. It's a humbling experience. Like, I just like to get out of and just get a degree. That's as I did it. That's really a wonderful experience. Something to go through. But I imagine I guarantee if I ask this guy, how old are you? Here's the most important question of the stream. Why do I enjoy age shaming so much? Isn't that the real question of the stream? I think it is. I think that's what I should be talking about. How do you balance remembering death and not despairing? Stop thinking about yourself. Like, start thinking about other people. There's no way that you can fall. Despair is a self-centered. You're like just looking at. Yeah. Like, death should be a sobering, like, I have little time, redeem the time. That's what death. But I have hope in the resurrection. But I'm praying for more time. And then start thinking about other people. Like, start serving people. There's no way that. So, despair is a sort of kind of pride and self-focus and narcissism. And the cure for that is like stop thinking about yourself. What's one way to stop thinking about? Action. Like doing stuff for others. There's no way that if you're constantly so you're gonna fall into despair. And buy Bitcoin. All right, next. And practice. It's not solved like intellectually. It's actually, you got to do the hard work. You got to practice this over and over and over and over again until you become the sort of person that it's like, I tend not to think about myself much. Other than like my sins that, like I'm being attentive to, and I might be like, this is the level I think about my sins. Being attentive to when I sin and why it happened. Then I try to really make no more judgments about that. And I take it to Father. I'm like, this is why I think it happened. What advice do you, but I try not to make much more judgment. I own it. I name it. And I'm like, I thought about it. I thought about the previous steps of why this happened, and issues that I need to kind of work on. Beyond that, I don't make any I don't think about it. Because to think about it, those would be, like I said, 95% of your thoughts are not your thoughts. They're demonic. And I think about, and then I try to not think about that by thinking about others. Like, what's good for, how to help this person? What could I do? The only other thoughts I have are like probably philosophical thoughts where I'm kind of going over arguments and stuff like that. But that's different than the spiritual thing, somewhat different than. This girl from high school. Welcome to the chat from hell. LOL, I woke up with 196 messages. Does that make sense? So, be attentive and watchful. But try not to. Do you see that kind of balance? I'm paying, like, so I'm not like, I'm not looking, thinking about anything. And, whoa, I'm falling down into a pit. Okay, don't want to be like that. But at the same time, like, I work as, like, quietness of mind. Like, where I'm like, I tend not to think much about, like, my salvation, and, I just, like, I think about the things, the kind of little things that are like, where am I at, like, in the grand scheme? Like, I don't find that helpful to let the Father think about that. I'm like, why do I have to think about that? Unless it's preventing me from growing. I know the little things, the 1 foot in front of each other that I need to kind of work on, but I don't need to make, so those are kind of judgments. I don't need to make judgments on my spiritual work. Like, I give a report and inventory of the things throughout, the week or month to the priest, and then I'll let him make the judgments and make a conversation about, and I try to think a lot more about, rather than myself about other people in my, which, to be fair, it's a little bit easier. I put myself in a position where it's a little bit easier for me because I'm a clergy member. I have people I'm responsible for. Just like if like somebody had like what happens to somebody when they have children? They probably stop thinking about themselves less, right? Because their children are more important. We don't have children, but I have parishioners, and I'm purposely put into a place where it's like it really doesn't matter what I think, or like I have a job to do. I have people to take care of, right? And I don't think much about those and the kind of things, and I don't fall into despair about. And I've been practicing it for a while. Oh, the schism in Bitcoin. That's an interesting, yeah. I don't know what to think about. Like I've heard people say, like overall it's good. It's kind of a cleaning, but like Bitcoin is like as far as currently, uh, it's not good. Like any instability and like obviously it's pretty far down. Um, but I'm a long term investor. You know, I just throw in like like no, I've already had initial investments or something, but I forget what they call this, so I don't have to like constantly watch like, oh, should I buy now or I've never sold. I don't trade. Um, I don't get involved in risk. Like I just have like 100. I pay $100 easy just on bills and food and stuff. Like I'm like, yeah, whatever. Takes it immediately out of my account. Just and over a long period of time, right? I'm hoping 20 years. By the way, when am I supposed to retire? What age are you supposed to retire? What did I say? I turned 49. I get to be. I'm so happy in 6 years a senior citizen. I can live in a 55 plus community um, home. Okay, let's do another. I'm looking at how to spell this. One second. I'm not spelling it correctly. Uh, all right. Let's use AI. It's really good to like for finding stuff like this because you're not gonna find it on YouTube. Find. And you're not gonna find it in a search engine like AI. Can you type this in? I want this series, this thing, pull scene from YouTube, and let's see what it does. It's usually pretty good. Season 5 episode. Okay. Then it even gives you like search things you can look on YouTube to help you. Oh, that didn't work. Well, the one by me is 55, but yeah, they're probably 65. So the one I'm actually looking for, and I can't find, is Arrested Development. Maybe enters into a 65 plus community. Try YouTube's Arrested Development. Old Start, maybe. I think it is. Such a funny series. Where Michael and maybe are like uh cousins, but there's this weird romantic. All right, let's see if I can try another one to find. YouTube searches are the worst. Lord, come on. That's crazy. It's like so much stuff you can find, but we can't find this one. Remember Anne? And his dad like hates Anne, and she's like just the worst girlfriend. Remember Mayong? Okay, let's try. By the way, if you guys find this, put the link in the chat. Hopefully, all of you are working on this with me too. Spotted palm, maybe. Let's see. I mean, all of these are great search names. It's amazing none of them popping up anything. I think we're gonna find it. I'm giving up. Unless one of you can find it. Yeah, dollar cost average, by the way. Thank you. That's And my wife says, I don't have a problem with kids. I just have a problem with kids in our apartment. I blows my, like, what little kids, 7 years old, stay up past 9:30, all the way up to 11? Like, we already went over that yesterday. Can't tell millennial moms that they're obviously that's not how you raise your children. They'll so 62. Well, that's good then. So this is community 55. There's a community on the way to our mission parish, 55 plus community. So that might not be a usual. That's abnormal. All right, other questions. I did find an interesting thing here because of questions about should we deport Muslims. The answer is yes. They do not belong in any semblance or country that has Christian origins. And people are like, oh, freedom of religion, though. The Constitution. You are an idiot and don't know how to read. The Prohibition and Establishment Clause was not referring to, anybody should know this, any religions. It was about Christian sects and denominations. First of all, despite some of the founders being Masons, no, this was a Christian country. Okay? It was not a Mohammedan, Muslim, satanic, Buddhist, Hindu. And so that First Amendment refers to, so no, you don't get to use that after revising history and being like, well, they're included as well. Nobody brings this up. I'm seeing in the chat, like, people are just like, Islam's not a religion. It's a, like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm like, the First Amendment doesn't apply to that. Now, let me give you a few things. For example, Supreme Court Justice Joseph Story served in 1811 to 1845, has a legal thing on discussion of the amendment. He states the real objective of the amendment was not to countenance, but much less to advance Mohammedanism. So they're actually talking about like it doesn't apply to, or Judaism. Yeah, both those people out. Or infidelity. So secular Satan, like, by prostrating Christianity, but to exclude all rivalry among Christian sects and to prevent any national ecclesial, so federal ecclesial establishment, which give to in a hierarchy the exclusive patronage of a national government. Also, there was Tarrant versus Taylor, 1815. Christianity has the favored cultural and legal status. So no. Even if you do let maybe some people in and give them from other religions some rights, they would not be equal to a Christian. These are all like rulings while still protecting conscience. Okay, so let's see. Some of the early, John Marshall actually do say the clause is only so the other one was a little bit looser. It's like, okay, that is Justice Joseph Story, but for example, Supreme Court Justice John Jay and John Marshall had said, no, limited exclusively to Christians. So I'd be fine with that. I'd be like, no other religions. Like, and I don't care what you think about and your feelings about that. But like, there's some top ones are the first ones that are gonna go. That's the Jews and Islam. Maybe we gotta get the pagans too. They're up, and the Wiccans and stuff like that. You three are out. Under the empire of Supreme Commander and leader FDA, you are the first. You better deport yourself before you are deported. And I don't care if you don't think that is culturally sensitive. Cultural sensitivity is for fags. And they're out too in the new regime. Okay, moving on. Justice David Brewer, the Church of the Holy Trinity University of the United States, described the U.S. as a Christian nation. Dicta, the story say, okay, this is great. Number 2, a state had the right to establish a. So, speaking about the Establishment Clause, a state had a right to establish official state religion. So, notice a lot of stuff was like federal. Like, no, you can't have a national religion, but Maryland could be Catholic, Montana could be Orthodox, right? And we did away with that. So if anybody ever uses those arguments like, oh, but freedom, or like, that doesn't include you. Like, the historic, and look, quote the Supreme Court justices, there's probably a bunch of Jews got in there, so probably be like, oh, we gotta, this could be bad for us. And we need to weaponize the other religions and bring them in and have multiculturalism in the United States so we can destroy Christians, right? Guarantee you, hands down, that's what happened. Just thought you'd find that as an interesting. Next, what is the next topic? We covered immigration, religions, my love for authoritarianism, and being culturally what's this? Insensitive. And un-PC. I think I don't like the whole PC thing. I think culture, like, we celebrate culturally, we reward for cultural insensitivity and hurting your feelings. We are breaking taboos every single day on this stream. Why? Because we love you, actually. And we want you to get better. I'm serious. What is interesting? Helena, Montana Police Department. Myth or fact? Traffic Tuesday. Let's see if you guys get this. If you're driving on the left lane on Custer Avenue, right there. Okay. That's weird. That seems a weird thing to say. You're driving on the left lane. I thought that's what people in Britain and Ireland do. Typically, I like to drive in the right lane. So, notice the philosopher is confused about grammar. People's grammar, not mine. If you're driving in the left lane on Custer. What a weird thing to say. And several vehicles are backed up behind you. You can be cited for impeding traffic. Can you help me out with this? I'm getting caught, stuck on. Why would you be driving in the left lane? Oh, you know why I'm having a problem with this? Is because there's only one lane here. Does it open up to 2 lanes? Yes, it does. Okay, got it. Oh, because the left lane is... Do you notice the sign? Do you have these on your freeways? We have them all over Montana. And actually, I only noticed it when we got into Montana, when we just recently drove back up from California after we were getting some stuff out of right lane is for slower traffic. Like something Californians could never comprehend. What are California like? They're so idiotic. They're like, see, we go into slow cars go into left hand, right? The passing lanes. Montanans are so great. Nobody even on the highway drives it. Like, we only use the left lane for passing people. Not in California and other states. Like, for some reason, everybody's just oblivious to their surroundings. And so they'll go slow. So either the left lane, that's correct, is for faster traffic or passing, not for slower. So it says, fact, drivers should not unnecessarily stop normal flow of traffic so you could get pulled over. And I remember that even when I was living in California, like, people always think that it's the fast person speeding that gets it. It's like, no, if you're actually driving too slow, that is not safe. You should get pulled over and thrown into prison with no parole. 20 years till you learn your you'd learn your lesson at that point. All right. It is illegal to drive barefoot in Montana. True or false? True or false? It's illegal to drive barefoot in Montana. We got one true. Actually, let's do this. Let's do engagement. Is it poll or what do I do? Or Q&A? Okay. We're doing traffic laws of the streets. Okay, ready? Let's see. And if you get it wrong, you have to send in a super chat. Hello, listener. Good to see you, bud. May the Lord bless you. Loving your work, Tony. My wife pulled up some really good, and I knew about your music. She pulled up something really cool the other day, so I appreciate that. Well, I fancy myself a musician as well. That's odd. I feel like it was like Doc Holliday. I'm channeling Doc Holliday. We're doing some of these super weird. We're doing Montana traffic laws for some reason. We just did immigration. We just did a whole commentary on immigration, religion, and deportation of others. We're gonna deport everybody else. I don't know why it's so weird. We're for our guys, right? Like, why is that? Why would I be for my enemy? Well, it's not fair to our enemies.
and satanic religious cults. Okay, cry more. I don't care. Get out of my country and get off my lawn. Caleb Andrews, $20. Wow, I'm thinking from now on, if an atheist points out similarities in Christianity compared to other religions of form refutation, I'm going to require them to point out differences. Well, yeah, good. The fallacy of similarities. This dollar looks like this $20 bill, so they must be the $1 looks like. Therefore, must be the same, and it must be mine. Dogs drink water, and I drink water. Huh. I must be a dog. That's how you end up being a furry. Telling you, when logic and reason goes bad, this is how you end up being a furry. Matter with you people. Then we gotta have kitty litters in the grade schools. Deport yourself before it's too late. Get out of my country. That's not very nice. Did you read the Gospels last week? Of the things Christ had to say about the Pharisees, the synagogue of Satan. All right, one other thing I forgot to. Hello, listener, i.e. Tony. Tony, i.e. hello, listener. Patristic Faith is releasing a new t-shirt line. It is called... Let's see if I can get it up here. It is called the What Would Uncle Ted Say t-shirt line. T-shirts are going to go on sale very shortly at Patristic Faith, but here we go. Moving to... You're always watching those stupid debates and following e-drama. You can purchase that at Patristic Faith. Okay, next. What's the other one? Tony, I knew you'd love this one. Next. Uncle Ted asks, so you're asking me if I'm going to catch the watch party? We're all going to wear these. We're going to break this E-spell, the demon E-spell that has captured the young minds of all our children. It's ignorance. What do you think? Who would purchase those? Not. I haven't, but first I do this to see how many people react to. Oh, the Nepsis rod? Yeah, hold on. The other product we're selling? Orthospurgs are going to love this. The hyper-religious Spurgy. You know, Christmas isn't that far off. You're wondering, what do I get my Spurgy, hyper-rigid, hyper-religious, boot-licking rule worshiper for Christmas? Well, Patristic Faith has solved that problem. You have an autistic nephew, friend, family member. This is the product for you. For the pearl clutcher in your family. Look at here. The official license Patristic Faith bed. Sleep in it like the greats we all come to love and know. Rest as did St. Joseph the Heskis. Rest as did St. John Maximovich. Both for humility, made for eternity.
built for humility, made for eternity. Hurry, get your Patristic Faith bed while supply lasts. And we'll throw in, for a very reasonable price, this add-on accessory, the aesthetically shaped Nepsis rod. Keep yourself attentive during those long vigil hours. Tried by the fathers, tested by tradition, recommended by humility. Not for the faint of heart. For strengthening of soul. There you go. So that's another product. I want to thank my buddy Chase for that product. Great merch. What else too? Well, I've always talked about when you guys ask the questions about like how do I solve this problem? And we have our Geomatic calculator, 5,000, built to give you a formula. So what you do, you basically, you slip in here, I think, where is it? Your question, right? Yeah, you put in here. Also, this converts into a vape pen. So it's got a dual purpose. And you put your question in there that you have, and then it's a Geomatic 5000 quantum question calculator. You put it on your head, and you have to do this to activate it. And then it actually has a screen where it writes out. It calculates using Talmudic Bayesian statistics, and then you can. So Patristic Faith's going to sell that too. So that's another. Okay. I think it's about time to wrap up the poll. What do you think? I was trying to. You have to yeah, and we'll throw a free mini wall in that you can kiss too. It's a vape pen. You know, the problem is I think I broke it. No refunds. Why? Because it's a Geomatic 5000 calculator. Of course there's no refunds. We got your shekels. Okay. So only people have said yes, 77%. Hold on a second. What's going on here? End poll. Oh, we got 23. I was going to say, how's this 73, 77? We're ending it. All y'alls are wrong. At least 77% of all y'alls. You are allowed to drive barefoot in Montana. Next. Yeah. This one's awesome. If you're driving through downtown Helena late at night and no one is around, you don't need to use your turn signal. Is that true or false? I don't have to do any of it. Wait, I thought there were no laws late at night. Survey says you are the father. No, wait. Do you have to use your, if there's nobody around and it's late at night, you're driving to Helena, do you have to use your turn signal? It says yes. Now, one of my parishioners is a police officer, and he actually, Surfy says you're anathema. He was following behind me. We're coming from somewhere. something. Maybe it was the catechesis class. He was like, "You don't use your turn signaler?" I'm like, "I thought I did, but then I forgot. Like, anytime you turn, I just forgot this. It's no matter what time of night, where you are, you have to use your turn signaler." Okay. Next, turning on your interior dome light while driving at night is against the law. True or false? Turning on your internal... This is from Montana. Remember, laws are different in different places. Let's see. Start a poll. Make sure I didn't miss any super chats. Thanks. The last one was Caleb. I'm also waiting for an email. I registered with Wiley Blackwell yesterday as a professor, so I can access to the instructor resources. I didn't even think about that because I want to finish building this course out. Says it has to be reviewed, so I'm still waiting. I have no access to it, so let's pray that we get that in soon. All right, let's see what you're doing in the chat. There is no generic God. You can't prove God. God is Trinity. It's super easy. You guys make this so hard for yourself. How could you prove God if there's no generic God? Okay. The term God is conditioned by the religion or paradigm. So you're not proving, quote unquote, a term or properties or something like that. This is why you're missing it. Tag is not an argument for the existence. It's the argument for the entire paradigm and a religion. Revelatory theism. Okay? And it is the religion that conditions the term God. So that's how you prove orthodoxy. Then you prove the Trinity. But there are other arguments too, but what it shows is, again, I only operate and think in one way that you have to prove, and so your argument doesn't do it. And again, what did I say? If you're a hammer, everything looks like nails. Well, Deacon Ananias, all my enemies are screaming for... Oh my gosh, I know. It's... But God bless you. May you struggle. But I'm just getting so sick and tired of the e-drama and online e-cults. And Tony, my solution is none of this would be happening if people made me the gatekeeper. I authorize who debates. You don't do anything unless I tell you that it's okay. We wouldn't be in these problems, right? We wouldn't be like, well, I like this. No. If it's not FDA approved, right? Those are the other shirts. It ain't legit. That's the only way. If you give, unless I get supreme power, I keep telling you guys this. It's the only way we're going to solve these problems. A benevolent dictator, FDA. Seriously though, you're under Patristic Faith. You're under. I'd be like, no, you don't get to do this debate. And echo. Echo is gone. Thanks to my Jew Matter My Jewmatic. Yeah. But I've been saying this for like this last 7 months. I'm like, ain't nobody doing debates unless they're over 30. And you gotta have degrees in philosophy, and then you have to be trained, and then you have to be under official clerical source, something like Patristic Faith. That was my, and we get the gatekeep. And clergy first. I don't think it's unreasonable. None of we've been having any of these problems. But yeah, I get it. It's frustrating. I haven't even been trying to pay attention to it. I've been too busy sleeping on my Patristic Faith bed with my Nepsis rod. You make your eyes red when echo. All right, what say we the And if anything goes wrong, you can blame me. How about that? You don't like how a debate turns out or what somebody says, you'd be like, it's FDA's fault. He approved it. Telling you would solve a lot of problems. We have 10 votes in. Turning on your interior dome light while driving. By the way, I know somebody's going to click. Do you know somebody actually tries to make like Jew AI or like Jew memes of me and stuff? I'm like, do I look Jewish to you? It's crazy. It's like, didn't we do a whole stream where we pull up my genetic breakdown? When you're a Jew, everybody looks like... I get my stream. All right, I'm gonna stop talking about it. Get my stream shut down. All right. I want to know what you say. 60% surveys in, you are the father. 60% say no. It's not illegal. 40% say yes. It is not illegal. All right. Well, that covers our Montana traffic law stream today. It says, it may be distracting, but it's not illegal. Any last questions before we bounce? We bone up out of here. And yeah, we'll have to think about more Patristic Faith merch. Have I done apologetics against Islam? Not too much. I let people who are better, like, than me do that. Lewis, Kai, David, and Orthodox Shahada, shout out to them. They do a better job. I even know that Jay didn't originally do that, and he was like, the amount of stupid stuff that you have to study to... He says it's so boring. So when I saw Jay actually, years back prepping to I was just like, it just really does not seem interesting to me. I'm like, might as well let somebody else do it. Maybe Dr. CJ Wade has Why a Monad. I've developed my own kind of. I wouldn't say it's entirely unique. It's drawing from the fathers and Gregory of Nazianzus and um, but I developed an argument. Actually, I got from Thomas Aquinas's one of his objections that he thinks he answers, but he doesn't. Between the incommensurability of like opposites, so like finite and infinite, infinite cause and a finite, you'd have to have right. You can't either grammatically, logically, or causally relate like opposites. You'd need some middle term by which they share. And I could pick, the energies, or, I could pick multiple things, but like the one I focus on is like, well, we're both, the middle term is person. And then I etymologically and historically and philosophically analyze person, and person implies a relation to another. And then I bring in St. Gregory and Nazianzus that monad is the principle of unity, so not difference. Dyad is the next principle, it's not monad, so it's the principle of difference. And then we have another dialectical problem. So if God has to be person, the first step is like, well, why couldn't he be dyad? Because monad and dyad are logical contraries. They can't be related. So the problem of the one and the different, unity and difference. There's no way to say they're different, but they're God, right? So only triad completes that. So it's a pretty straightforward argument. People don't like it because they don't want to like it. It's not because it's a difficult argument. I've tried on Muslims. Like, everything's difficult for people 50 IQ. I'm just like... But I don't think that's that philosophically a difficult argument. They always want to go to, like, try to find something in the Bible. Four and five are redundant. And it's not really the numbers, it's the principle, right? So 4 is an illustration of what is 4 composed of or contain. I'm the only one that's kind of talked about this. Like, I mean, other than it's in the fathers, so I don't know anybody that really kind of... And there's no logical necessity, like there's something that stands behind the God, the Trinity. The necessitates God's has to be the Trinity. The Trinity-ness, right, necessitates everything else, and we're looking down from there and being like, are there arguments for why that's true? Okay, yes, I just gave you one. But not because there's some law of necessity about number that stands behind God. If that makes sense. 4 is either what? 1 and 3, so you're back to the same consideration. Is it monad or is it triad as the principle? Okay. Or it's 2 and 2. They have two dyadic principles, right? Like 5, 6, 7, like whatever number. So that's why it's not about number, it's about principle. So you reduce numbers to their principles. So the question about why not 4 or 5 that's not even a legitimate question. Because we're not talking about numbers, we're talking about principles. So, and the only principles it possibly could be, all that's going to be reduced or consideration is either monad, dyad, or triad. And no, number is not the exact same thing. Like the number one can illustrate the notion of monad, but it's not exactly the same. But yeah, it's really straightforward. It's a great argument. Okay. That is all. I want to thank y'all from coming up that hotel. What was our now here's a man really wants to get down to you. Want to get down to it, don't you? Our Mulholland Drive, the cowboy scene. Don't you forget that. With great debate tactics in there and rhetorical polemical devices from the cowboy. We want to just thank the cowboy from David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. And we appreciate that. I'm sorry I couldn't find the maybe scene of her dressing up as an old lady to enter fraudulently into the 65 plus community. But again, let me just one last thing with that. You're saying, first of all, you can't actually understand how the Trinity proves God, because it doesn't prove God. It proves the Trinity. So if you thought you understood it, you obviously didn't. It's not a piecemeal where you prove generic, kind of there is no generic God. You can't just plug anything in there and work, because the argument isn't about terms. It's about what? Revelatory theism. And comparing competing claims. So we're looking at the whole conditions, the meaning of the terms of the words. So if you prove the whole, you prove the word, right? Trinity. Number two, what's incorrect about that is exactly what Russ. There's no purely rational proof or argument for theism. So that's the other thing. You think it's like, quote, it's a logical proof for the. There is no such thing. There's only a theistic account of rationality. In a world in which there isn't revelatory theism, the question and even consideration of proof is impossible, right? So that's the second or third thing that you have incorrect about that. Does that make sense? And as Caleb Andrews points out, as Father Florensky says, revelation is history. So it's not just, and this answers the question, why isn't system building? Because people are always like, well, can't I just create? I'd be like, there, you just went wrong. Can you create? We're not talking about, again, that's autonomous epistemology. It's either revelatory theism or autonomous. I'm building a system. And if it can't work from autonomous system building, then of course, revelatory theism's not in that category. So how could you accuse it of being the thing that was just shown it wasn't? But isn't it, it's like, you can't help somebody like that. They need to go into a mental ward or, mow lawns or like lawnmower boy man or something. I don't know. Okay. So, revelation. It's clearly not meaning subjective burning in the bosom, right? Because that would be a defeat. Like, there'd be no way to verify that. We mean public, objective, historical revelation. Did God come and speak, and there's our evidence for it, right? That's why Father Florosky says revelation is history. Not,
well, I just copied and pasted all this stuff from your it's not a system. It's a person in its history. So look at the different competing claims about the history. So you've just ruled out all of those, like, because somebody's like, well, how do we know that we got every one or a limit? It's like, dude, the infinite amount of histories that actually took place in this actual, like, are you retarded? Like, this is crazy. There's only a couple, right, that even claim to be revelatory. God comes down and reveals. And then you can look at it and be like, well, obviously that one doesn't match history. Or that one's just completely retarded. These aren't hard arguments. You make it so much harder than God is the Lord who revealed himself. And he revealed himself in history, and he revealed himself as Trinity. That's why, that's the proof. And there's no other way to justify anything apart from that. That's why WrestleMania says there's no purely rational proof or argument for theisms. But there's no alternative way to even think or have meaning. There is no right? There's only a theistic account of rationality. The theistic story. Everything else is impossible. But could you put that in a mode of logic? It's like you're missing the point. But doesn't that mean that a true disjunct is trivial? And I believe in Althean like logic. And what about paraconsistent like logics, Father? Like, it's like you miss the point. There's no purely rational proof for what you keep saying for the Trinity. There's only a theistic account of these things. Whatever system and thing that you're thinking about, paraconsistent logic or true disjuncts. We can't even have a conversation about that in a non-theistic world. The theistic account is the only. But actually, if I look at the art, like, it's just. Do you see what the problem is? They just can't get it. You just don't get it, do you? All right. That is all. That is my rant, harangue for today. May the Lord bless you, keep you, let his grace shine upon you, and preserve you until next time. God bless. Bye-bye.